Welcome everyone to Legion Gaming. I'm your host Donnie, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Deucy.
Hello, everyone.
Deucy, how are you on this fanciful Saturday afternoon where we're recording episode 70, covering Dead Space today?
Yeah, I am excited to go. We're starting our spooky month. Just like last year, we're going to do a lot of horror games for the next few episodes. You can have a bonus episode on Halloween. But I thought this was a good one to start with because I played it last October, and then I finally finished it this October.
Yeah, I'm really proud because you got to finish it. And it's always funny because for us, we have all the recordings over the last 2 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like we're always talking about games we're playing, and it's funny when you circle back to something. You're like, remember that game I played like a year ago?
Yeah.
I finally finished it. So it'll be a fun month. It's last year we did Doom, Castlevania Symphony Night, and our bonus episode on Halloween was Resident Evil 1. And this month, as you're listening to this, you have Dead Space, and then we're going to be doing the Devil May Cry series. And then we're doing Resident Evil 2 for our bonus Halloween episode because that's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yep.
And I'm very excited to do that because we're covering the original game plus the remake, which is both are genuinely two of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, for two different reasons. I still like the original more overall for the canon of things, and then 2 is just fun to play. Like, I think I played that back-to-back 3 times.
Oh, you did? I know you finished it so frequently back then.
Yeah, because I got that little unlock everything key, so then I just
Oh.
decided different ways to play it. One time was regular, one time was with the classic sound effects, a third time was with like a different suit. I was wearing a different skin or whatever, but I also had a rocket launcher, so I just blew everything up in my way.
Which is very classic because we used to unlock the Infinite Rocket Launcher in the OG game, and in the remake, they actually have the PS1 skin. So
Yeah.
it's a true throwback. It's great. So I'm really excited to cover that game, especially because, like I've said, it's one of my favorites of all time. Dead Space is, I guess I could say it's one of my favorites of all time. I enjoyed it at the time, and I enjoyed the remake arguably even more than the original. So I think it's going to be a really fun episode to cover this because this game does have its place in survival horror, and I think maybe it's not as appreciated as it should be, partly because of the publisher and this and that, whatever, but it's interesting.
I feel like the trilogy kind of tailed off, and we won't be covering the trilogy itself today, just the 1 and the remake, because those were the most important, I think. I think also people don't think about it as much because it tried to lead into other games like Callisto Protocol and now Chronos, but those haven't been as well received as like other games that Resident Evil influenced.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like Dead Space's place in survival horror is just really weird because it is such a stellar game all throughout, and really the remake is even better than the original, like I said. And yet it's a series that's beloved, but it's like you said, it doesn't have the influence of like a Resident Evil or Silent Hill for some reason. And I know a lot of that's probably because of the releases and, like I said, because of EA and this and that, which we'll kind of get into. But it's just interesting because this is just such a great game, and yet it just feels like people care about it, but it's just not in the sort of the hallmarks of survival horror.
I will give it to them that they tried to make it a sort of an expanded universe. There's like, I believe there's like an anime movie or a show.
Yeah,
or something.
there's at least one. I want to say maybe 2, and then there was like
there were
that
comics.
weird spin-off game, the comics.
There were some novels. There were some spin-off games.
Yeah, I think one was like a weird rail shooter type of thing. I forgot what that was called.
Wasn't one kind of a card-based tactical or something like that? I can't remember.
If there was, I should have looked it up because that sounds awesome to me.
Yeah, no,
it might be, yeah.
Yeah, I really can't remember. I just know that they weren't like the survival horror that the base trilogy was, but they tried. They really wanted to make it a all immersive universe.
Yeah, like an extended universe, which is popular these days, and they were trying to do it back then. And I feel like a lot of series were trying to do that, and a lot of them didn't work as well. Like just even Silent Hill had its sort of bit where it's like it did visual novels and a few other things. And now it's back to its roots. And Dead Space did the same thing, and yet, we might not get a remake for 2.
Surprisingly, no movie was ever even talked about, I don't think.
I would love a series for this.
Yeah.
Before we get to everything Dead Space 2, see, what have you been playing lately?
Stuff that is decidedly not for October.
Well, to be fair, we just started October.
Yeah.
So you're still sort of like in that transitional period between September and what's basically fall and really the end of the year, which is ridiculous because we're going to be doing our Game of the Year episode soon enough.
Oh, I know. And just recently I've been putting more on the list finally.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've been sort of just playing the same stuff over and over. And now I'm going to talk about like what I just recently played is going on the list coming up in December. and that is Yoshi's Crafted World.
Yeah, I thought it was funny you picked that up again because they announced a new Yoshi game at one of the Nintendo Directs recently, which looks really great.
Mm-hmm.
And I only got to play a little bit of Yoshi's Crafted World, but it's a really gorgeous game. It's super fun. But yeah, I thought it was cool that you got back into it out of nowhere, really. Probably because of the announcement, I would assume.
Yes,
yeah.
very much so. Because I was like, that was one of the few games I was excited for during that announcement. And it came as a total surprise. Everybody was like, oh, they're going to talk about Metroid, and they're going to talk about this and that, Pokemon probably. But then
Nintendo slipped this in.
Yeah, when Yoshi popped up, I was like, yes! And they always do a good job on the visuals. Ever since Yoshi's Island on Super Nintendo, even if the games were a little bit more on the easy side, like Yoshi's Story, and I believe there was one on Wii.
There was one on, I think there was one on Wii, and there's also, they did a couple DS ones that were also kind of weird and whatnot. But yeah, I agree with you because Yoshi is that weird series where Nintendo feels like they can extend themselves beyond their norm, I should say.
Yeah.
Where they can experiment more. And yeah, it all started with Yoshi's Island, which was, or Yoshi's Island 2. I always want to say that's Mario World 2. Yoshi's
Mario
Island.
World 2, yeah.
But they did make a Yoshi's Island 2, which I later discovered way after the fact. But yeah, Nintendo really gets to experiment with Yoshi. I think it's great because all the art styles are very, very distinct.
They really keep with a similar theme too, like a storybook type of feeling. The new one that's going to be coming out is going to be literally in a book, and it's all like hand-drawn looking and stuff like that. This one in Crafted World really looks like a bunch of elementary school diorama projects. And it's just amazing. It looks even better because I haven't played it since the original Switch that I had. So I started it up on Switch 2, and with the bigger screen and everything, I was like, wow, I'm really noticing all these extra details. And it just looked amazing. And then I realized as I was going through it, because I still had a lot to do, it's probably the one Yoshi game that's closest to the original Yoshi's Island.
I think so, because even down to the coins, which I was texting you too, like I'm always just attracted to like visual effects in some way. And the coins in this game look really gorgeous to me. Like they have this certain sparkle and sheen to them.
Yep.
And we picked them up. They're super nice. I don't know why I was just like, I was playing this on the old Switch when, I got it like however many years ago. I was like, wow, that's a really nice coin. Like I was just staring at that thing spinning.
Yep. Everything, the flowers that you have to collect and the coins and the little hearts that replace the stars from the original, they all lead to this like bonus score, and you're trying to get 100 on every level. And I was doing it for a little bit in the first few worlds, and then I realized there is a lot to this game. I'm just gonna like breeze through and try to get to the end. And even all the boss fights were unique and original, and even the last one against Baby Bowser was fun. So yeah, I had a really good time with that. I was glad I finished it, and it inspired me to go back to another Nintendo mascot and try to finish this one, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker.
I really need to finish that as well because that game is charming as all hell.
Yeah.
I really like that one.
It's so unique. Like Nintendo really knows how to make a game for its individual mascots and everything. And I'd say like Toad is one of the big 4 or 5 ever since Mario 2. Everybody really wanted to play as Toad back then. And even in Mario Kart, everybody's favorite is like Toad or Yoshi. But this one is so unique. It's just a puzzler. You don't like jump or anything. You just have to move around, and then you move the level, which is like a cube.
Yeah, you remember, I was going to mention, like, you remember that game? I forgot what indie game it was. Fez, I think it was called. Right? You remember that game had the same similar concepts. That was like 2D graphics, but you would twist the playing field, and you would, I think it was more of a platformer puzzler. But it's the same idea with Captain Toad, where it's like, yeah, you twist the level and you get a different view of things and you solve puzzles based on your perspective.
Yeah, and sometimes it's even actually difficult. Like you think it's like, oh, it's a baby game for babies, but no, like it can be some brain teasers in there, and there's some parts where you're going along and then you just get crushed by a thwomp or something, and you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming, and luckily I have lives. But yeah, I've been having a really good time with both of those. I figure I'll put them on my Game of the Year list because the last time I played them, we weren't even doing a podcast yet.
Yeah, that's why I think it's great. Like when we do our Game of the Year, like I mean, I'd say most of mine are like newer games because I just play so much throughout the year. But it's great because there's stuff that you and I will rediscover because we're recording about it. And we're like, yeah, like this should be on my Game of the Year. Like I played the shit out of this game over the last year, and it's 30 years old or something, you know?
The last thing I'll mention on here is a continuation of what I did earlier this year, and I finally started Resident Evil 8. And
it's about time because you bought it you borrowed it from me, forgetting you bought it.
Yep.
And then you're like, hey, I'm going to return this because it turns out I bought it sometime in the last year.
One of Capcom's many sales.
And half a decade later, you're getting to it. So I'm very happy because I'm almost positive, like when I beat it in 2020, I was like, you got to play this. It's really good.
Yeah, you beat it like right after it first came out. And
yeah, I was addicted to that game. Like, again, it's not terribly long. Like, it's only, 10 to 12 hours, maybe 13 if you stretch it a little bit further. But, I was glued to it the whole time. And I was like, telling you, like, this is really good.
I feel like I'm making good progress already. I've I know there's probably 3 or 4 bosses because there's those weird children, quote unquote.
Yeah, so the idea, it's like Lady Dimitrescu she was like obviously a huge deal when that game came out.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because she's really only in like the first
She's
quarter
like
of the
quarter
game.
of it, yeah.
Yeah, and then exactly. So sort of step in that format where it's almost like old game progression where it's like you have like your sort of hubs and that leads to a bigger boss each time. And there's probably at least 4 bosses. I'm sure there's a couple more, but there's like 4 of the main bosses with the sisters.
I've already gotten a couple of her daughters. And she's now wandering the halls, like kind of chasing me like Mr. X. So I feel like I'm making good time on this so far. And it's already hooked me more than Resident Evil 7 did. And even though I ended up liking Resident Evil 7 by the time I got to the end of it, Resident Evil 8 feels very much like a classic Resident Evil. I know you said, oh, this is more like 4 or 5, like a little more actiony. But I feel like it goes back even further because you're in a giant mansion, castle, filled with puzzles, and like you need this item to open and unlock this thing, or you need to like spin the little statues around in a certain way just so something will drain. I'm like, yeah, this is very much. And then it made sense because I was going through Ethan's home and he's got on his bookshelf this book about mansions and castles written by George Trevor, and I was like, oh, there's a nice wink and a nod, and I'm sure you'll find out Trevor made this castle or something. And he was like, let me put every puzzle I know into this.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I mean, it does have sort of breadcrumbs, I'll call them. And then towards the end of the game, there's going to be one specific document you're going to read you're going to be like, oh, okay. And hopefully when you get there, you'll probably end up texting me and be like, yep, that's the one.
I'm also impressed with sort of the characterization of Ethan this time, because in 7, it's first person, and like I said before, I always like my main characters in a Resident Evil game to have their own personality and everything. But when it's first person, they kind of want you to be the character, and you didn't really get much of like what Ethan was. But in this one, he's turning into more of a badass, and like trial by fire in just 3 or 4 years, because he's like now gung ho about getting his daughter back. He's pissed off at Chris. At one point, Lady Dimitrescu like messes you up and pushes you through a floor, and he's just like, he just gets up and he's like, yeah, hit me with your best shot. I'm like, yes, go get her.
Yeah, that's also part of the reason why I say it's sort of like a parallel in some ways to Resident Evil 4, because by Resident Evil 4, Leon is now a hardened cop who knows what's going on in Raccoon City and and everything that's happened to him. So he takes less crap from everything around him. And that's how 8 is, because 7 is, that's like more pure survival horror, right? Because that's really the intent of it. Like, everything's claustrophobic. I would say even the field of vision's shorter and narrower to get that feel in there. Yeah. And then 8, which I also think I'm pretty certain they also patched a third-person mode in finally.
Oh yeah, I started with that.
Did you? Okay, yeah. So obviously when I beat it, it wasn't there yet. And then the DLC, which it's like a solid 2 hours, it's really good. That's all third-person to begin with. That's why they put the third-person mode in the original game. Nice. But that's why I was saying, like, it's sort of like 4, where it's like it's more action heavy. There's more enemies around, and you don't feel like you're as constricted with resources, right? Ammo's pretty reasonable. You have a merchant now, which also helps. So it's like it's a great sort of it pairs really great with 7, because 7's like this is really back to its Resident Evil roots, and 8's a little bit like 4, but with, like you said, the OG games where it's like you have the puzzle solving and action. Like, it's a lot more better balanced for that kind of stuff.
You even have save rooms with their own little theme song in them, and the typewriters and all that sort of thing. So I was like, yeah, this feels like home again.
Yeah, it's really great. I'm glad you're finally getting to it, because I've been wanting to play through the Resident Evil games again. Also because Vito texted me, he's like, he's finally playing through Resident Evil 7. Like, he hasn't played it at all, apparently, and he's loving it. I was like, yeah, it's a really good game. I'm glad you're also playing this too.
I've inspired him.
Yeah. So, and then again, I'll be excited to play Resident Evil 2 again, because we're covering that in a few weeks.
Yep.
For what I've been playing a lot like usual because there's been so much that's been coming out over the last few months and this whole year. But a few of the highlights, Sonic Crossroads came out.
Oh yeah, I have played that as well.
Yeah, we played some 3-player co-op online. I really, really love this game so far. It does have, it's not perfect like anything else. Like, we had some issues with connectivity when we're playing online, like, it would disconnect randomly for no reason.
God, yeah, that was almost like WWE levels.
Yeah, it was really annoying. But it's like, once it was stable, it was super great. But I've been really enjoying it. I played through all the GPs on, I guess it was technically the normal speed. Now I'm going on to, I think it's called Sonic Speed, and then there's Supersonic, where everything's just like faster. I've been really liking this game because the tracks have a lot of variety. It scratches certain itches that Mario Kart couldn't. And it's like, you inevitably have to compare Mario Kart and this. And to me, it's like I told you, Deucy, it's like kind of like comparing chocolate and vanilla. Like some days you feel like having vanilla.
Yeah.
Some days you feel like having chocolate. And Sonic has just been sort of my flavor lately because I really like the sense of speed it has. I really like the crossroads. So like whenever the person in first, the second lap of each race goes to like a crossroads. It's like a different... It's really just like an intermission track like Mario Kart.
It's like a totally different track. It's not even a point to point like Mario Kart. It is a different track that you wouldn't race normally, but now you're only doing it for one lap.
Exactly, yeah. So it's sort of like a transitionary thing in between the race. So the person first actually gets to choose between like a randomized track, or you can kind of see like this sort of through a window kind of thing, like Mario 64 of like what the path is. And all the tracks just have very distinct personalities. Like, it's hard to say if they're relatable to Sonic. Like, I saw one of the criticisms was like they reuse up. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like they should have reused some of the theme courses from Transformed, like the Golden Axe level or Shinobi, right? Like, I thought that would have been really cool.
Well, I guess that would require those characters into
That's also true too. Yeah,
because I know DLC we already know is going to have Mega Man, and I'm sure there's going to be a Mega Man level.
There's got to be a Mega Man level. There's got to be a Mega Man event. Like I told you yesterday, they had the I don't care about Hatsune Miku, like this I don't know, Japanese pop idol thing. But I was like, well, if they have a stupid event for this, then they have to have them for when Mega Man releases, right? So it makes sense to the probably have like decals and everything else. One thing that I've been really loving more than I thought I would is the car customization in this game,
which I chuckled at because you also loved that Mario Kart got rid of that.
I was happy that Mario Kart simplified the course or the car parts, but in this game, the car parts are just cosmetic, so you can kind of mix and match like the front ends and the back ends. And there's also a ton of decals.
Well, no, they do affect your stats like one little point at a time.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
If you look at their little stats, but that's why when I picked mine, I was like, oh, this is great, and then I started looking at other ones. I'm like, oh, this affects things I don't want to be affected, so I'll just keep what I have.
Oh, see, I didn't even mess with that because really the bigger thing that affects your stats are the gadget plates that you have.
That's the fun part.
And that's the really cool part because this is what really separates from Mario Kart. So it's like if you have a specific sort of build or play style in mind, there are these gadgets that you can put on your license board. There's like 6 slots you can unlock, and they all take a different point value. Like you basically have 3 on top, 3 on the bottom. They have to make up or total 3 on each level. And then you can sort of customize how you play. Like there's one item that gives you more items, or it makes certain items appear more. Or there's something where like if you hit a wall, you won't lose rings. Because the idea here, like Mario Kart, where if you collect enough rings, you get a speed boost, essentially like a persistent speed boost.
There's one I like that every time you collect a ring, you get a mini speed boost.
Yeah.
So the rings come in long lines like in any Sonic game, and you just start boosting through a whole turn like that.
Yeah, and there's one that I saw that gives you 3 items and also gives you an item when you complete a lap, which I thought was crazy. So there's a lot of variety just in that. And like you said, you might fall into your preferred loadout, but I think it's cool that it can also encourage you to try different characters if you want to, because they all have different stats and whatnot. So you kind of mold your play style about it. It's like I really haven't changed what I've used because I love drifting so much in this game.
I have 2 different plates, one for racing like competitively and one for the time trials. That makes me go a little faster.
Yeah, see? So I think that's really cool. I just been really enjoying it. Like, I'm basically saying the same praises I had with Mario Kart, right, when that came out. It's just Mario Kart, after I played it for like a month, I was like, all right, I'm over it. Like, I'm ready for something new. I'm ready for some patches to kind of, iron out some things. And I'm sure I'm going to hit that with Sonic, but I at least appreciate that when you play online, like, despite me not caring about the Hatsune Miku event, it's cool that there's an online event where you can earn more things. Like, you can actually earn tickets to unlock more car parts or gift them to your other racers. You can unlock decals. There's a whole lot of stuff you can do that keeps you going versus my thing with Mario Kart's like, you can play online, that's it. You can't play online with your friends necessarily like in a randomized match. You have to play like Sonic does, where it's just like you set up your own events kind of thing.
Except didn't they just patch in that one for knockout? You can
you can play knockout, thankfully, with your buddy online. Yeah, but other than that, there's no progression. It's just You're going to deal with the chaos of racing online. You're probably going to get slammed, thrown around, and whatever, you know? So Sonic Crossroads is an excellent kart racer all throughout there. Like, I really, really like it so far.
Yeah, I've been noticing, like you said, you're forced to compare it because that's all they're doing online is these are the two most recent racers. And I wouldn't give it the higher score than Mario Kart like some places have been. I think IGN gave Sonic a 9 and Mario Kart an 8 or an 8.5. I would give them probably equal, and it's not a detriment to Sonic. I'm saying that Mario Kart unfortunately kind of fell down, and Sonic has been so good that it's up there at the same level, which we haven't had from another kart racer in a while.
I don't think since Transformed. Like, I know a lot of people didn't play it as much as Mario Kart, but I really feel like Transformed was as good as Mario Kart 8 was at that time. But Mario Kart 8 obviously is like leagues better now. Like, I love Transformed, but I know Mario Kart 8 is just a more robust, more fun kart racer overall.
Yeah, they added that extra DLC pack, and then everybody was like, what's other racers?
Yeah, and again, like, my biggest complaint with Transform back then was just how stupidly difficult it gets to the point where, like, it's not even fun. Like, I can't progress through the adventure mode because I can't play an expert. Like, you have to have an absolutely flawless race. So.
I wonder if that's going to be when you get to, like, Super Duper Sonic mode or something in this one.
I thought that was when so I played on, like, on Sonic mode or whatever the hell the hard mode is. And I'm actually getting a good lead on some of the other racers because really I think the biggest changer for here is like when you do your rival races, like the higher your rival level is against a certain, because when you start the GP, it selects a rival for you that you have to sort of compete against.
Yep.
And I was playing like level 7 or 8 and it was just like back and forth. I was getting like just screwed. But because like when I tried this new GP on the hard difficulty, they start like level 3, so it wasn't that bad. So far like difficulty's been a reasonable curve, but also one big thing that I've noticed, at least from my experience, is like I am not getting screwed at the line like in Mario Kart World I was. Mario Kart World was constant. Every single race, I would get screwed at the end, right at the end, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to get first, so I just have to restart the GP. And one small little change that Sonic does is where if you finish, if you have a placing in a GP race, you can pay 20 tickets, which I mean you earn 20, 30 per race anyway, and you could restart the race if you want to. So if you get 7th, in the third race of 4, then you can restart that race and try to get first. Whereas Mario Kart's like, all right, well, I got 4th in the third race. There goes my gold star, so I have to restart the whole thing and be mad about it, But again, like, it's really just talking vanilla. What do you prefer today? And today I'm preferring Sonic Crossroads. The other games I've been playing, I got Silent Hill F last week, and I finished that already. I was just absolutely glued to that. It's I was left very confused at the end, so it's a great Silent Hill game in that respect. What's interesting about this game is that it has a New Game Plus mode, and the New Game Plus mode actually has more story and more cutscenes.
Oh.
So it's kind of interesting that, I understood some of the story, but I was also just like, is this what I think it is? Like, I feel like I'm missing parts of the story. And from I read it online, because I looked it up, like a lot of people are saying, like, no, you have to play New Game Plus because it is really essential to add more context to some of the things that happen in the main story.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, so it's weird that they made that choice because, the game isn't terribly long. My clock was like, I think 9.5 hours, 9 hours 45, which is, again, solid, totally solid. But on successive playthroughs, like you still have your stats, you still have, I think, your upgrades and whatnot. So it makes it a little bit easier to kind of go through. So I'm probably going to end up doing that because, if the game's only 9.5 hours on normal, it's probably going to be even quicker for me on New Game Plus since I have a little bit more upgrades than anything else.
You'd think that, but my replay of New Game Plus on Resident Evil 4 was taking about the same amount of time, and I had some amazing guns in that one.
That one is a little bit harder, though. Like, I think, like, Silent Hill F was kind of hard at parts, and, like, the combat, it's not amazing. Like, it's just totally fine. Like, it's okay. But I think the combat is just... you don't really, it's not like Resident Evil 4, it's like you constantly have enemies coming at you. Here it's like you might fight 2 or 3 at once, maybe 4 if you kind of got screwed and like you ran yourself into a corner or something like that.
Oh yeah.
But it's very puzzle heavy, it's not so action heavy, so that's why it's also I think a little bit easier because most of the puzzle solutions I think stay the same unless you crank up the difficulty on those. Like I unlocked Lost in the Fog, which is I guess even more obscure puzzles to solve. I'm not totally sure how that works yet because I haven't tried it. But it's been really excellent. It's a top tier Silent Hill game. It's 1960s Japanese horror. It's got a lot of just mutated enemies that I'm like, oh, that's kind of grotesque. And that content warning, they definitely pushed the boundaries of some of the things on there. It's like, I won't spoil too much here, but someone's like, oh, okay, now I can see why they said be careful because there's like, themes of like suicide and abuse and this and that. It's pretty crazy.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. But I enjoyed the hell of it. It was a really good horror game. And the last one I'll talk about is Hades 2. This came out last week. This is a sequel to Hades, which came out probably about 5 years ago now. It's a roguelike, and I always talk about how I'm like kind of up and down roguelites depending on how they play and like the sort of the gameplay loop, if that keeps me hooked. And Hades is one of the few that actually has.
I mean, Hades was the one that put these kind of on the map.
They really did. I think that really said, like, here's the new benchmark. And Hades 2 is another benchmark because it is really, really freaking good so far. If you've also played Ninja Turtles Splinter Fate, that's probably the best Hades-like that I can think of. Even so much that you got into it, Deucy, so I know it's a really good roguelike when they got you hooked in there.
I never played Hades, but I love Splinter Fate.
Yeah, Splinter Fate is basically Hades, but with Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
It's really good. But Hades 2 has been really stellar. It looks absolutely amazing. I really like the combat so far, and like the loop, it's like, I've died a few times. I can get through the first boss, get to the second boss in one run. But it's like, that's the whole thing. It's like you die over and over, you level up your stats, and you feel like sort of a one-person army by the end of the first level, and then you get, gut checked in level 2.
I think my problem with all roguelikes is like, on paper, this sounds like a good plan. You keep going, and you level up your stats, and you get to keep those levels, and then you get further. The problem is, by the time you get good enough to start passing some of the later ones, you've already played the first level like 20 or 30 times.
Yeah. And that's why only so few of them, only so many of them can hook me is that same loop, because it's like, it's kind of like, I've always accounted or made it similar to like an arcade experience, right? Like you put in your quarter, you get through maybe the first level, maybe 2 levels, die, put a quarter in, start at the beginning again, right? And this is kind of that format, but not many games get it right to where the gameplay and the combat is so fun that I'm encouraged to go through it over and over and over, because that's kind of like one of the things I had with that Rogue Prince of Persia game. I really like that game.
Yeah, me too.
But it's like sometimes I just get tired of fighting that first boss over and over. It's like if you have a bad run or a bad roll of abilities, it's like, well, this runs over before it started.
I really liked the combat and the movement in that game, the way you could run on the walls and do other things. And then, like you said, by the time you're facing the same boss over and over, like 4 or 5 times, I'm like, I just want a new Prince of Persia game with these mechanics and stuff that doesn't have me restarting.
I will say one big thing Hades 2 does have, though, is that they have, they call it like God mode, but it's basically just sort of like, it boosts all your stats, so you're basically like, it's probably more of like a brawler in that respect. I haven't tried it, so I think that's great. Like, I always appreciate when games like this, more people should play. And I know this game's going to be doing really, really well because it's just gotten like insane reviews everywhere. I know it's like critically acclaimed and all that.
Yeah.
But I think it's great when games like this that are, they do have sort of a higher learning curve, they add accessibility like that, where it's like, if you want to play and just experience the game, like turn on God mode, go ahead and do it, and like play through like you're supposed to be like a god just demolishing everything, right? So I think it's great. It's only like $20, 25. It's worth it, especially if you like roguelikes. Like I really don't think it gets better than Hades, frankly. And if not, go buy Ninja Turtles, which I think is on sale for like $12, because that game's also really stellar by too.
That one really surprised me, especially with all the voice acting in it and just how the turtles interact with each other and the new characters. And I believe there's going to be new DLC coming soon.
It just came out. So I didn't know when they announced it was out so soon, but they have Metalhead and they added an arcade mode, which I'm not totally sure what is included in that. I assume it's probably like like an arcade mode where it's like,
yeah, you just go through the
You
levels.
go through and you have lives or something. I think they give you like preset abilities or something. I don't know what the case is, but again, I'm just happy that they're supporting this game because it feels like not many people care about that Splinter Fate game.
Yeah, and
it's one of the best games I bought last year. Like it was only $25 brand new or whatever it was, and it's a really fun Turtles game. It's really, really damn good.
Yeah.
All right, Deucy, I think we've talked quite a bit about, well, pretty much everything.
The current state of affairs.
The current state of affairs is our state of the union of sorts. So let's get into some Dead Space finally. All right, Deucy, we are here for the first episode in our month of horror, and it's pretty serendipitous, as I say sometimes, because this game is actually celebrating its 17th anniversary as this recording is released. A few days before, I should say.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Because this is going to be October 10th when it's out. So Dead Space, the original game, was released October 13th, 2008, which, again, blows my mind that it's that old at this point, because... the mid-2000s doesn't feel like it's 20 years ago, but it sure as hell is.
It's also weird. I looked it up, and it's the same day of the week that it was it's releasing back then, and the anniversary this year. And I thought it was odd that it released on a Monday.
Yeah, it is a weird release date, because usually, for me, it seems like it's always like a Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday. It's never really like a Monday. Sometimes it's a Sunday with Nintendo. They used to do that, I think, during like the Switch era for some reason. I don't know why, or like pre-pandemic. It's really weird. But Dead Space came out October 13th, 2008. This was developed by EA Redwood Shores and published by EA. EA Redwood Shores was rebranded to Visceral Games in 2009, and it became its own division under EA. It's technically the first genre studio within the company that focused more on like third-person games, which makes a lot of sense. I could see that. And some of the other games they've done, I was actually shocked with this one. They did Future Cop LAPD on PS1, which I remember playing on a demo disc way back. They did NASCAR Rumble on PS1, one that you're familiar with, I think. Or no, I don't think you played this one, right?
I never did that
about that. Yeah,
because it was more arcadey.
It was. It was like a Rush NASCAR thing.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods PGA Tour Series. They did 007 from Russia with Love, which we covered way back. Dante's Inferno, Battlefield Hardline, and a bunch of others. So Visceral Games has a pretty good lineage of games, I would say.
Oh, they did Hardline. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I
still have to play that one because you told me that was really, really good.
Yeah, that was a very story-heavy... It's like a cop drama in a video game form.
Yeah. It's really cool. Yeah, so I have to try that one out. I'm sure it's on EA Play or something. It's just, I remember when it came out, I heard it was good, and then it's just like anything else. I haven't played it, and it's been like a decade or whatever the hell it's been out since that game. So Dead Space. I don't know. This game kind of released in a weird time for survival horror. Survival horror really was like, to me at least, at its peak in the mid to late 90s going into the 2000s, because you had Resident Evil that kicked off everything, and then you had like Silent Hill, which was probably the biggest survival horror game next to Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Because Alone in the Dark really wasn't... I mean, they had a couple of games released during the PS1 Dreamcast era, but they weren't really like...
No, they were bombing.
They weren't on the level of like Silent Hill and Resident Evil. And survival horror had a bunch of clones. By this point in 2008, we had Resident Evil 4 had already come out in 2000. Was it 2005? I think it was
5 or 6.
It must have been 5 because I don't think it was 6. Yeah. And also, this is around the time of Resident Evil 5, which both those games are just totally different than the typical survival horror. So Dead Space is kind of like the anomaly in this, where it's in a time that survival horror isn't where it was. It's arguably not as popular as it once was, even 10 years previous to this. And this is also like a post Gears of War, post BioShock generation, where everything it's like this gritty third person shooter. Everything's like muddy and brown.
Yeah.
Right. So Dead Space, to me, when I first heard this announced, I was really excited for it because I didn't enjoy Resident Evil 5 as much as others. Like, it was purely like a co-op game, and I didn't really have a co-op person to play with at that time. So it was really just like an arcade shooter that had a Resident Evil name on it.
Yeah, I remember I liked Resident Evil 5 because the co-op partner didn't suck if you were playing it as a single player.
Yeah.
But I do know I'd never beat 5 way back when it first came out. And then you must have told me about Dead Space because I remember I pre-ordered it, and I got a pre-order bonus from GameStop. But when I look at this, I don't know why I would have been like inclined to do that, because I'm not usually the horror guy or anything when it comes to games other than Resident Evil.
You're understandably selective though, which makes sense because there's again, like in this era there's like a lot of crappy clones.
Yeah.
But it's like you're obviously selective because it's like you've been burned before, I've been burned before too, and this just looked really good.
Yeah, I feel like I must have seen that this looked like kind of a throwback to the original Resident Evil games, and I was like, I'm ready for this. Yeah. And it paid off. So the concept of this game was created by Glenn Schofield. He's a longtime game artist, designer, director, and producer. He's worked on tons of games since 1991 in different roles. He was I put a few here that I thought were kind of fun. He was an artist on the Home Improvement Power Tool Pursuit for Super Nintendo. Street Fighter the movie, a favorite of mine there. Super Battle Tank. He directed Gex 3, Blood Omen 2. He did a lot of producing for the Call of Duty games. And he was also the director of Callisto Protocol in 2022, which oddly kind of fits with what we'll talk about with the remake too, because I feel like part of the reason the remake didn't do well was because it was in this weird intermission period between people maybe waiting for Callisto, but really just waiting for Resident Evil 4, which came out a couple months later. Yep.
And the game was influenced by Resident Evil 4, ironically, and also the Silent Hill series. They actually had a different name during development, or sort of their prototyping phase, I should say. It was called a Rancid Moon, which is a hell of a bizarre name to me.
That would have been a fun one, too.
I think so, yeah. Rancid Moon, it just sounds, I don't know. It's got some weight to it, I think. Dead Space was pitched to EA in 2006, and EA gave them 3 months to come up with a prototype. And it's fun because this prototype was actually developed on the original Xbox because, they just needed something playable, and that was probably the quickest route to do it because I don't even know what they would have had at this point in 2006. I guess they would have had 360 dev kits, but maybe they weren't so familiar with the hardware just yet, and they were probably more used to the Xbox hardware.
Did 360 come out in 07?
05.
Oh,
November 2005, which, again, 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
But it's probably just for the ease of development, they use the Xbox, which I can't imagine this game being on the original Xbox, but at the same time, I can also see it fitting with that because that thing is, I should say is, but it was a powerhouse for the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like it probably could have done really well with Dead Space. It's just, again, like the 360 was out, so I think by comparison, it just would have not done well on the Xbox. But nonetheless, really, they only developed on the Xbox because they needed a prototype right then and there to basically sell this thing to EA. And Schofield wanted to create something that was different from EA's typical output, and he described this as Resident Evil in space, which pretty much, there's no more succinct way to put it than Resident Evil Space so far. And the immersion was the key core element to the game, along with the HUD elements being in-universe, which I think that's a really sort of key component that maybe some developers don't get right, where they have like a UI that just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. Like one of the weird examples I thought of when I was reading this was the Gears of War remake, or remaster, I guess we should say. It wasn't a remake. It had like, totally redone graphics, but the weird thing is like the UI looked like it was like from a different game, or it was just like too clean to fit with the game.
Was it from like the original and they didn't do much with it, or did they redo it?
I think they redid it, but it's like it's too clean. Like it doesn't look like it fits the Gears aesthetic, which it's kind of really explaining with me describing it.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, like it just looks like it doesn't necessarily fit with the game. Like if you look at Dead Space and when you pick up an audio log or a text log, like you come up with like that holograph thing that looks like it's in, it exists in this universe.
I was going to say, because when you move the camera around, you can freely move the camera. The HUD that you're looking at for your inventory or even the map doesn't move with the camera. It moves with your character.
Yeah, and I think that's a really key thing that immerses you even further, because it just shows that this is one contained world and you're just exploring it or being a part of it.
It also is a good hint that the game doesn't pause when you go into your HUD, so don't bring that up when there's a monster nearby.
Make sure you do any kind of maintenance or anything else you need before you move on to the next room. Because it's not the most fun when you're
what game? I was playing another game recently, and I didn't know that it didn't pause when you went into the menu, because the menu comes up and it takes up the whole screen, and then all of a sudden I got hit. I'm like, crap. Whereas in Dead Space, if I do that, I realize, oh no, I think this is me out in the world still.
Anytime I think of like opening a game menu and the game continuing, it's beyond Souls games, which are notorious for that, but that's just part of their sort of DNA.
Yeah.
I always think of Resident Evil 6.
Oh yeah.
Because that had the most awful UI.
Yeah.
That's a little bit hyperbolic, but it had a really awful UI where it's like they tried to simplify like this smartphone thing, except you had to use a D-pad to navigate, and like everything was nested and just a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And like you had to use this to like combine certain items while the game was going around you.
You didn't even know how many like item slots you had left. You're like, am I this close to the end? Am I full? Do I have room to pick up this herb? And whereas in Dead Space, after I put it down for a year and I came back to it, I forgot there was a quick heal button. So there were some rooms where I was running around, opening the HUD, scrolling over to my health item and activating it, and it was a lot easier than frickin' Resident Evil 6.
Resident Evil 6, it always makes me laugh when we play that, because we've talked about in this podcast as well, where it's like we know that it's a crap Resident Evil game, but it's one of the most fun co-op experiences I've ever had in any game. But it's dumb moments like that where like you're scurrying through your items left and right. You're like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Like everything looks the same. What am I doing?
And then there was like, was it like left and right as items, up and down as weapons? You're like, what am I doing? And like sometimes if your fat thumb like hits two of the buttons at the same time, you don't go to the right menu. You're like, darn it.
I know we always talk about streaming, but I really love to try to stream that game or something. Like we just, it's us playing that thing with all the shenanigans involved. I don't know, I think that'd be a fun thing. But anyway, back to Dead Space after Resident Evil 6 tangent, because that game just never seems to die. So another big thing of this game is the strategic dismemberment, which I remember this being touted all the time when this game was announced, when the trailer was shown. And again, this is one thing that also just distinguishes it from other survival horror games, where the enemies are these these grotesque mutations of basically sort of a virus that's taken over humans, and they've mutated them and whatnot. And your whole thing is like, you would assume like, oh, headshots matter in this game, and they kind of do, but really the game is actually designed in a way where if you shoot most enemies in the head, it actually just pisses them off and they charge you more. So they want to emphasize like just dismembering them. You have a lot of weapons. The most basic one you have is the laser cutter, and that it has this alt fire where it's like it shoots horizontally or vertically. And that's the whole idea, is like you're basically shooting legs off, shooting limbs off. One good strategy is you shoot their legs off so they're crawling and you just stomp the hell out of them. And that's a totally viable strategy. Mm-hmm. And also, like, this game, it doesn't have as limited resources as most others. I'm sure on the higher difficulties it does. So that's, something viable. The second game, yeah. So that's something you want to keep viable here, where it's like, to conserve ammo, you really just want to dismember the enemies and try to get them, on the ground where you have a little bit more control. Because at that point, they can do damage, but they're so slow that you can really just stomp.
One thing I utilized more in this playthrough than I did in the original game is it's called the Ripper.
Yeah, and I love that weapon.
It's just a saw blade that comes out, and it's kind of held together with gravity and magnets, but it spins out in front of you, and you just kind of hold it there and say, hey, walk into this.
Yeah. Or you can shoot it, and that saws them off. You could saw through multiple enemies. I think it has a little bit of a ricochet effect. You can upgrade it to have 1 or 2 bounces. Yeah. So again, like, the weapons is just the ultimate playground in this game. I think it really adds a lot to everything this game does. And also some of the big themes in this game, which we'll talk about in the story, are themes of religion and rogue states outside of Earth's controls that were used to ground sci-fi universes, which I think, again, is really effective in this game, where, we'll get into the story in a moment here, but it's like you could definitely tell the inspirations of this game were include Alien, Event Horizon, Sunshine, which I think is just a horribly underrated movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
Oh, yeah.
Have you? Okay. I'm pretty sure I recommended it to you way. Actually, I think you probably borrowed my DVD way back then.
No, I owned it.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. So there you go.
Because I think I saw it first, and then I was like, oh, my mom will really like this too. And she did.
You could so again, like, all those you could definitely see Dead Space take inspiration from. More notably, Event Horizon, more anything else. That's actually a movie I have to rewatch. I haven't seen that in probably like a decade, maybe since the first Dead Space came out. I don't remember.
Oh wow!
But it's a really great movie that has a little bit of a cult status now. I know it wasn't immensely successful when it came out, but if you haven't seen it, it's really one of the more awesome horror sci-fi movies that have come out. I think was that 90s? I want to say early 2000s.
No, it was late 90s.
Late 90s? Yeah, geez, that movie's even older than I anticipated.
God, was it 97 or 98?
I feel like it had to be in that window, right? 97 to 99, maybe not 2000. Yeah.
It was no, was it? Maybe it was after the first Matrix, because I remember Lawrence Fishburne's in it, right? And like,
but I think it might have been first before the Matrix, because
I saw it. I saw it after the Matrix.
We'll have to look that up. I should look that up, but I'm curious now because I always just frame it, and it ends up being older than I think it is for some stupid reason.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's late 90s, and it grabbed my attention mostly not because it was sci-fi horror, but it was Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne. I was like, Alan Grant and Morpheus? Hell yeah.
Sounds awesome to me, and it is really awesome. It's a damn great game, or actually movie.
Yeah.
And when you see it, you'll instantly see the connections to Dead Space. That's why it's so freaking great. Yeah. So we'll get into the story before we get into the game here. The year is 2508 when humans have expanded through the universe. One common thing in this era is planet cracker ships that are used to mine planets, as humans are nearly extinct on Earth from resources depleting. So, a little bit of a reality check, I guess, for us there.
And mining is sort of an understatement, because they literally tear the world apart and take all the stuff out of it.
Yeah, planet cracker is not taken lightly.
Yeah.
They're literally cracking planets apart. So in this game, you play as engineer Isaac Clarke, and you're sent to Aegis 7. I always mispronounce that. Aegis.
Yeah,
I think it's Aegis, right?
I hear him say Aegis a lot in the game.
So he's sent to the USG Ishimura. This is a ship that was on an illegal mining operation on Aegis 7, and it's home of what's called the Red Marker, which is a copy of this alien monolith that was discovered on Earth. And what's happened is there's been people who have been attempting to weaponize the marker, and it's led to the creation of an organism that affects corpses and transforms them into what this game calls necromorphs, which are all the disgusting mutations you see all over the Ishimura. So you arrive on the ship Kellyan with your crew, and you don't really know what's going on, which I think is sort of that tie to Sunshine, where it's like, in Sunshine, there's this spacecraft that's off in space I haven't heard from for 7 years, and there's stress speaking out of nowhere. So the Kellyan here is sent to go investigate the Ishimura and see what's happened, because they get a stress signal. And as far as they're concerned, it's like they're probably just there to repair the Ishimura and see what's going on. But they arrive and they find out that there's really no power. This place is shut down. The captain's dead. There's really no one around, and very much like Alien, like, it's just what's happened here. We're trying to unravel this mystery. And from there, Isaac's mission is to repair the Kellion, because what happens when you land it is there was some sort of I don't know how the accident happened, but it's just sort of like a docking accident.
Yeah, there was like, as they were coming in, there was just flying debris all around because the Ishimura wasn't fending off asteroids automatically. Because when you crack a planet, obviously rocks are going to be flying everywhere. And so, yeah, usually the Ishimura would be shooting those away, and it didn't. And then it hit the Kellion and sent them like diving into the docking bay anyway.
Yeah. So again, that kind of sets up this whole narrative play where it's like they're stuck on the Ishimura now, right? Because, in other purposes, like if you had a safe landing, like, well, we're getting the hell out of here. Like everyone's dead. So that's a sort of an interesting and tricky way to sort of set up the sense that like, that's it. You can't escape now. You're in space in the middle of nowhere. The ship you've arrived on is now damaged to a point where you probably can't repair it. And you're also on this ship that you don't have no idea what's going on. You're dropped in. Lots of people are dead. You're seeing these like mutated, corpses all around, and that sets up the whole game here.
Yep.
And one of the big things is a lot of the exposition in this game and all the story is handled through audio logs and video logs that we kind of talked about. Which this game is another game where you want to collect all of those because it is so steeped with lore. It's so steeped with details. It really nails that sort of the immersive sim, even though this isn't an immersive sim in the same sort of definition necessarily, but that sort of sense where this was a ship that had people living on it. People were, doing their jobs on this thing. Like this was a place that people lived on, and there was a society here, and now it's gone. And you have these bits and fragments of what that was.
Yeah, it definitely taps into what I fell in love with the Resident Evil series.
Exactly, that's a great way to put it.
It's like I always like to see what my current situation is, but then I want to know how they got there. Like when you see something and the door is barricaded, usually there's like a text or an audio log nearby that says, yeah, we had to barricade that room off.
Yeah, and I love it because it gives just enough info in some of those logs that you find. Like it might say something like, so-and-so is acting really weird, and it's like Resident Evil. It's like the next part, it's like, well, he just went nuts.
There's so-and-so.
Yeah. So-and-so ended up going absolutely nuts and he tore someone's face off or something like that.
Yeah.
Or, you see maintenance logs where it's like, they're like, what's happened here? Like this thing was ripped out. Who did this?
It's, in this one in particular, there's some logs where you're seeing like the captain turns out to be sort of a religious fanatic.
Yeah.
And he was there on purpose to do things for this religion that worships the monolith thing. And then other ones are they're writing about how they don't trust the captain. They're trying to lead a mutiny. So then when you do see not the captain, but like the captain's number one confidant show up, you're immediately like, I want to shoot you.
Yeah.
But you'll notice that like that character, since you now have new knowledge, that character always seems to be just out of reach or behind glass or on a different video call.
Of course, yeah. They're always just like, you can't get your hands on, but you want to kind of thing. Yeah, because later on in the game, you do find out there's a couple survivors here, and they're both sort of different sort of thoughts. Like really the main, like you mentioned, Deucy, the main religion here, or the main sort of religious angle, I should say, is the Church of Unitology. And the church was founded on the discoveries of a geophysicist named Michael Altman. The church believes that the human race was created by these aliens, like more divine alien intelligence. So they're sort of like made in their image, and that humans, to essentially get to sort of to ascend to their level, they have to become one with the aliens, and that's how sort of the marker plays into this whole thing. And one of the angles of this story too is that the marker on Aegis 7 ended up causing like mass psychosis to the colony there, and that's kind of how the necromorph invasion started in Ishimura, is that this marker that was placed there caused everyone to go nuts, like they were killing each other, killing themselves and whatnot. And also one little quote from the Church of Unitology, which kind of plays into the whole thing, is, through convergence, we all become one mind, one being, one flesh.
Yeah.
So that pretty much encapsulates necromorphs. It's almost like really in the main game too, there's also sort of like this hive mind that really just wants to wreak havoc on everything.
And there's a line somewhere in the game, I think it's from your main character, where like they're talking about this, and he's like, with all of this grotesque stuff that's growing on the ship and like coming at you and trying to kill your friends and everything, how is this better? How do you still believe that this is the way to be?
Yeah. And again, it's just like, it's always fun when you watch sci-fi and horror movies, because it's like, you know what the story is and how it goes, like why these horrors happen. And then you're thinking like a normal person, like, well, how could you have not seen this
Yeah.
happen? You know, like, what do you mean? Like, you have an alien monolith, you see that it does these things to people, and like, what do you mean? How does this make any sense? And then the twist later in the game, because we should go back a little bit too. One of the big things with Isaac in this game too is that he's also trying to find his wife, who's working on the Ishimura.
Yeah.
Because she's working on some unknown projects, which you later find out are related to the marker. And then, should we really get into the big twist towards the end, Deucy, about Nicole?
Oh, I guess we could.
I guess we could.
Yeah,
so,
it's been how many years?
17 years. Yeah, before the remake. So there's a lot that happens in the game here. One of the bigger twists is that the marker was actually placed on there by Earth. It was sort of by the Earth government, I should say. It was almost sort of an experiment on Aegis 7. And also you find out that Isaac's wife, Nicole, was actually, she's dead. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole thing. So it's like these logs that you end up seeing towards the end of the game are really just hallucinations made by the marker for Isaac.
Not even just logs. Like at certain points in the last few levels, she's there in the room with you.
Yeah.
And like helping you push buttons and things.
Exactly.
But then you come to find out there is a human that's helping you push buttons and everything, but it's not your wife. It's another survivor.
Yes.
So you're not like fully crazy, but you are seeing the things that the thing wants you to see.
And the marker, I mean, it does just enough to make it see what it wants Isaac to see, so it can complete what it wants Isaac to do.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it sounds really complicated when I put it that way, I guess. But it's really just the marker has things it needs to do, and it manipulates Isaac in such a way that gets him to do it. So if he sees his wife and that they're about to be reunited and they can escape off this ship that is trying to kill them, really, then he's going to do all that. And then you find out the bigger twist, too, is that one of your team members, because basically most of your team dies, but there's one named Kendra, who's computer tech. She boarded with your team, and she actually reveals that she's part of the Earth government sent to control everything that's happened on the Ishimura, which is really just to erase any existence of the marker being on Aegis, and really just sort of remove the idea that the Ishimura was related to this, because it was an illegal mining operation. So Earth says, like, we don't want anyone to know about this, of our experiment or anything going on. So they sent Kendra to kind of oversee everything on top of all that.
They were going to take the marker away because it was theirs anyway. They put it there. They were going to nuke with like a third different ship. They were going to nuke the Ishimura. They were going to let the chunks that they had already ripped from the planet just crash back down and destroy everything there. And it was supposed to wipe everything out of existence.
Yeah. And so once that's revealed, then you see that Nicole wasn't real and that she basically killed herself because she didn't want to turn to a necromorph. She was seeing what's happening, obviously, on the ship. And that's really the big twist of the game. And then you fight like this giant monster at the end of the game, which is a really cool boss battle. Like, I feel like it was big enough to where it felt like a nice finish to the whole thing.
It was weird because in the original, it felt like a big giant last battle. But since the remake happened and they've altered some of the boss fights and everything, the final boss wasn't as impressive as some of the ones that they did throughout the game.
I agree. Like, I think it's a good final boss, and I feel like it was a good satisfying end of the game. But it feels like all the cool tricks were shown, before that, really, more or less. And that's really the big story of the whole game. Like, I really love that story. I think it's like, we keep reiterating, like, it's been inspired by Event Horizon, Sunshine, like all the sci-fi movie greats.
This would fit in with a great sci-fi movie, like horror.
It would. This would be
genre.
like such a great movie, a great TV show. I think the story is one of my favorites as far as like survival horror because it's executed so well and it keeps you on pace. And there's also a new game plus ending that's in the remake. The idea in the new game plus and the remake is that now you can now collect these marker fragments. They're like these little sort of like statues of the marker. There's, I believe, 12 in total that you have to collect throughout the game. And then it unlocks a new ending that says, I didn't get the whole thing, but I guess there's a scene where Isaac discusses building something new with his hallucination of Nicole. And then he covers the shell's interior with a marker's language. So it's almost like he kind of goes insane, I guess.
Yeah, he sort of becomes one of the church
part
people.
of the hive mind church people. Yeah. So I'd like to get to that. I actually played the remake a little bit last night because I was refamiliarizing myself with this game because when I beat this, it was what was it 2.5 years ago when I texted you with the save file when it came out. So this game came out. I guess we'll talk the remake now before we get into like how much we enjoy this game. So the remake came out January 27th, 2023. This is released, of course, on like PS5, PC, and Xbox. It was developed by Motive Studios, published by EA. Motive, they focus more on action-adventure games. They were founded in 2015, and they developed games like Star Wars Battlefront 2, like the newer one, which I think is... I don't want to say it's underrated because it got the proper flogging it deserved when it launched because of that whole microtransaction mess with the multiplayer. Once they reversed that, probably because Disney said this is awful,
Yeah.
it was a really great game. I think it's horribly underrated now, but it was justifiably.
Yeah, they couldn't win everybody back after that.
Exactly, you did way
start.
too much damage. Yeah, it was nonsense. So that game's really good. They did Star Wars Squadrons, which I know Rainey and I love that game. And, it's one of the better space sims that nobody played.
I didn't hate it, but I was just like, I can't do the multiplayer in this right now.
I love the multiplayer in that game. It's so fun.
I wish it was a little more accessible, like the old Rogue Squadron games.
Yeah, I could see why. I would say like this, that Squadrons does have like a higher learning curve just for the controls, but I love that because once you learn them, like it just feels like you have total control over the ship.
Yeah.
And then of course it sucks that multiplayer sucks because it takes minutes to find a match. There's no like crossplay. That game was another miss.
People got good really quick, so you couldn't have time to learn because you were just constantly getting shot.
And the only people left were the people that were good. So it's like, there's some matches where me and Rainy were doing really, really well, and there's some where it's like, I don't know where I'm getting shot from.
Yeah.
Motive also did, they're also working with DICE on Battlefield 6, which is pretty cool because I played the beta. I've enjoyed that. I'm sure I'll probably end up getting it because my other friends are going to end up getting it, so peer pressure will win again. So the remake, I'd say it's like pretty faithful. They added a few things. I don't have a comprehensive list, but they added sort of like these security clearance systems so you can easily access certain areas quicker. There's some side quests that you mentioned, Deucy. There's like I think like 3 or 4 of them you can discover.
What they added was sort of a more open access to the map because in the original game it was chapters, kind of like Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
But unlike Resident Evil 4, you also couldn't go back to certain parts once you've gotten to the next chapter.
Yeah, because you also had that tram that would take you to the next level, so it was usually pretty difficult to backtrack. And I think in most instances you couldn't.
Yeah.
It was very limited.
And so now you did have access, like when you complete a chapter, usually after a big confrontation with a monster or something, all it does is pop up on your HUD that like, oh, chapter such and such is completed. And you're like, okay, but I'm continuing the story. So there's these side missions. There's only 3, and they're not too expansive. They're just like some little hollow tapes that play out in rooms that give you more story about the people on the ship as it's starting to fall apart. And I thought they were added in seamlessly, and it just is more lore that you want to collect. They also added, weirdly, that we didn't notice at first, Isaac, your main character, has a voice now.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I remember that when I played the remake, I was like, I don't remember him talking. And as we were, looking more into this in the game and for this episode, we're like, oh yeah, he was a son of protagonist. And now it's just some scenes are very weird when you pointed one hilarious example out where they're asking about his wife in the original game. He just like sits there stone face.
Yeah, he's watching this clip from his wife and she's like, being emotional and everything. And then somebody in the room with him goes, "Oh, do you miss her?" And you don't say anything. Whereas now, like in the main game, he's another character, and it's great. It does play out more like a movie.
Yeah, it gives him, for lack of a better term, more character. Like you feel like he's an actual person with motivations and whatnot. And I think I can understand why they did the silent protagonist job because it's probably sort of their way to immerse him as like your Isaac in a way. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I feel like there's something missing when someone's just sort of, giving you some dialogue about your wife and you're just sitting there like Link.
Yeah.
Not saying a damn thing, not even shaking your head, He
didn't
speechless.
Nod. He didn't shake his head. No, nothing.
Yeah. So the remake is by far the preferred way to play. I know the original game, I'm pretty sure it's playable on Series X, like through backwards compatibility. But, you don't really want to do that unless it's dirt cheap.
Weirdly, both are on Game Pass, the original and the remake.
Yes, and I think, and also I want to say 2 is Series X enhanced, but not the first game. I can't recall. And also the original game is on PC. That's where I was playing it. It looks really great. But again, like, just get the remake. If it's not on EA Play, Game Pass, it's on PS Plus. It's everywhere. It's really good. I was playing it last night, like I said, and God, like, it is just such a gorgeous remake all throughout. Like the immersion, the fog, the lighting, everything just instills this sense of...
Oh yeah, it's a lot darker now. Like you really need your flashlight on.
You do, and it works so freaking well. Like there's of course, like I'm playing on an OLED TV, so it's like, in the beginning, the first chapter when you have to turn off the lights so you could use that to power on the elevator.
Oh yeah,
pitch black.
Yeah,
and I'm looking at my screen. The only thing I really see on my TV is really just like a silhouette of Isaac and like the glowing health bar. I was like, oh crap.
Anytime I had to power an elevator and take away from the lights, I'm like, I don't want to do this. Can I find some stairs?
Yeah. And the remake, I said it was faithful, and I'd say it's pretty faithful because there's so much that granted I'd forgotten a lot, but it works so freaking well. Like it's generally one of my favorite remakes in the last couple of generations.
I mean, faithful is perfect description for it because they didn't take anything away. It wasn't like the Resident Evil 2 remake that sort of messed with the swapping and the zapping system and everything, and changed up the story, even though it was still a really good story. This one really sticks with the story, and then it just adds some more.
Yeah, and like you said, it's seamless because that's the thing. It's like there's so much that beyond the fact that I forgot a lot of it, there's a lot that was added, and you're like, oh, like this just fits with it. Like it just, you might find some lore logs, or like you said, the side quests that seem to fit in pretty well, and they add more lore to it because that's really what makes this game beyond its immersion, beyond the atmosphere, beyond anything else. It's just the story that really just draws you in. And I'm always big on pacing because there's always like two extremes, right? It's like the games that are short and sweet and don't overstay the welcome. Then you have like the giant open world games that are just like 40, 50 hours long, and like the story kind of gets lost in the middle of that because you're trying to stay focused on the story missions, but you're getting distracted by like collectibles, side quests, anything else. And Dead Space is on the side of the spectrum that I love, where it's like this game is really tight. It's it's like you said, I think 12, 14 chapters, somewhere around there.
12 chapters.
12 chapters. I'd say like they're reasonably length. Like none of them really feel like they drag or anything like that. Like there's something always keeping you going. There's always sort of that mystery of what's around the corner. And that's one thing that's also I should talk about too, is how effective the enemy AI in this is. Not because it's like really smart. It's just for the fact that they've kind of randomized where they can pop out from. So
I think that was another change in the remake from the first one is it notices how you're playing. And if you're sort of like investigating a room over and over again, like really going through it thoroughly, all of a sudden something will pop out when you thought you were going to be alone.
Yeah.
Because you had already maybe done a big battle and cleared out everything. But now that you're backtracking and coming to this locked room or something, they're like, we're going to throw in one more little guy. Just one more.
Yeah, and it's great
Keep you on your toes.
It doesn't feel cheap. It's not like it just spawns out of the middle. Like you see it spawn out of the air. The great thing, it's like, you kind of hear some skittering sometimes. Like even when I was playing just through chapter 1 last night, I was hearing something like, okay, I can hear where that might be coming from, but I can't quite see it yet.
Or like down a long hallway, you hear it bang out of a vent shaft or something.
And that again, it's just like Alien. Like you'll hear the things like in the vents or in the ceiling and whatnot. And then, for me, it's almost like the necromorphs hear you, like they sense someone's nearby. So it's almost like them letting you know that they hear you and you trying to be quiet so you can see where they're coming from so you can try to kill them, I think that was really effective in here. All the weapons, there's some like, I feel like towards the end of the game, like some of the weapons weren't that great, but it's also because you get them so late that I really wasn't using them. Like I was using the line, what's it called, the line charger?
You have the plasma cutter, which is your main
that's like gun. The one you probably should be leveling up more than anything.
Yeah, that one's really good by the end. And then there's one, I think it's called the line cutter, where it's like the plasma, but wider. It's like a wide beam.
Yeah. And there's also, I think it's called like the Noah charge or something like that. I forgot what that one's called.
Whoa. No, I know there was just a plasma gun that fires like a machine gun.
Yeah, it's the pulse rifle, I think. Yeah. Which I was using. I mean, that is really good at shredding things around.
That's when you're just scrambling.
Yeah,
you're like, everybody get away from me.
Exactly, just get off me. Yeah.
There's also a flamethrower that I never really used, but I heard could be good if you leveled it up. Mm-hmm. There's one called the force gun. I'm not sure what that one even did.
Oh, I think that was the one I wasn't using too much.
Yeah.
I can't remember, yeah.
And there was a third one. There were like 3 that I just kept in my storage and I never used.
Yeah, that made one because I really just use the plasma cutter more than anything, obviously, because I feel like, and that's just my habit, like in a lot of these survival horror games, I always, and it's probably because I played Resident Evil back in the day, it's like the pistol's your go-to. It's probably going to be the most ammo, your most basic weapon, but it's also going to be the most effective. Same for Resident Evil 4. It's like I would just level that up because more often than not, I'm going to have pistol ammo more than anything else.
What I enjoyed about this one, I don't fully remember if this happened in the original game. I feel like it did, is that like the game notices what you're using, so it will give you those ammo drops, and you won't just find random flamethrower fuel, even if you're not using the flamethrower.
Yeah, I really like that because to kind of go on a little tangent, it's like I've been playing through Chronos, which I've been really enjoying, but I'm running into that issue that I was telling you where it's like you are so screwed for ammo, and the melee is just ineffective in this game. So it's like, well, they can chase me. I have a melee that does nothing. I guess I'm dead, and I can't find any ammo. It's really, really what's one for? It's really stingy with the ammo. And Vito's facing the same thing. Like he texts me like, yeah, I see exactly what you're talking about with this game. And it's like with Dead Space, when I was playing it last night, I was like, wow, they're pretty generous with all the ammo. It's like I was running out of plasma cutter, I was getting it. It's like, that's what should be on medium. Like just keep me, sort of on my toes and fearful that I might be running out of resources, but just enough to where I don't feel like I'm totally screwed. Because even the melee here is reasonably effective, I think. It's like, it's not ideal, but it'll at least get them off you to where you can run away.
It pushes them back. There's even like an upgrade to your plasma cutter that like knocks them down with every melee hit.
I saw that one. Yeah, I was actually really close to getting that because on New Game Plus, like you keep all your abilities and level up. I was like, oh, I'm only a couple away from that. Yeah. A couple other things we could talk about too are some of the extra abilities you get in this game. Like there's a stasis where if there's like a door that's rapidly closing, you do like this sort of slow-mo singularity orb thing that slows time in a bubble.
I feel like this power was big at the time.
It was
in the mid 2000s.
I agree. Like that was definitely like in early 2000s. Check out the gimmick we're doing here.
Yeah, where you want to slow down time and even slow down enemies. And that one, it's funny when you slow down an enemy and then you do damage to them. It doesn't affect them right away until they speed up again, and then everything falls apart.
Which is a really cool effect. It's almost like Neo stopping the bullets in front of him or something. Just dropping them. Yeah. There's also these anti-grav sections that I think are really cool. I think they call it Zero G. Is that what they're called in this game? Where it's like you're kind of floating on the outside of space or through an area that has like its airlock sucked in, so it's like you're in zero gravity, for lack of a better term.
They made it way better than the original.
They did, because I remember in the original being a little bit of a challenge to control and float through there, and I didn't have nearly as much trouble in the remake.
I didn't realize, like, I just remembered I didn't like the Zero G too much in the original, especially there was like some boss areas that were I was dying a lot at. In this one, though, they give you full flight capability, which I didn't realize wasn't a thing in the first one.
I didn't realize that either, because I thought it was just, I thought maybe it was just clunky on 360, but I didn't realize it was like, it just didn't exist in there.
Like in that one, you had to go point to point. You had to point yourself at a certain landable space, and then he would launch himself.
Yeah.
And then land, and then
I remember that.
You had to pinball your way across Zero G, whereas this one is cool. You just hit the bumpers, you take off, and then you just start flying around with your jetpacks.
Yeah, you're like a full spaceman on there. And then again, going back to the stellar audio visual design in this game, like when you're outside in those Zero G sections, like you could hear like the audio just kind of eclipse because you're out in space, and like it just sounds.
It just goes into.
It sounds like your ears about to pop, but they don't.
Yeah, you're in sort of a vacuum bubble, and you sort of hear things, but not as well as when you were inside.
Exactly, yeah. And then some of the boss in this game, frankly, unfortunately, I can't remember. You remember more than I would, Deucy, because you played through it more freshly than I did. But I feel like all of them were pretty reasonable. I didn't think they were too difficult. Again, like I think the difficulty in this game, especially on normal, is just it's balanced really well. Like you don't feel like you're ever going to get screwed out of things. You feel like you have just enough of what you need to get going, and you usually find enough pickups to at least make you feel like you're not just you're not doomed on the next room.
Yeah, they were I would say really well balanced and well varied. Like there was a boss that was the entire size of a screen.
Oh, is it the one that's in that circular thing you have to shoot the hinges kind of, or is like it's gripping on the edges? Yeah.
Yeah, and then that launches it out into space, but then you fight it again on the outside, and this time you're in, both times I think you're in Zero G.
Yes, you're just floating there, which again, really cool, adds some variety to the game.
Yeah.
It's not just you're grounded fighting in a claustrophobic room, like you're floating out. It's almost like a space shooter in this instance.
But then they do bring it into a claustrophobic boss where I forgot what he was called. He's called the Hunter in lore, but he's basically like a regenerating boss that never dies, even if you cut off its limbs. And you have to find certain environmental ways to kill it, and it chases you through multiple rooms, sort of like a Mr. X, but quicker. And I thought that was a neat balance where like some of them are just like you're terrified because you're running through these rooms and it's right behind you. And then other times it's giant like world-ending monsters are in the same room as you.
Yeah, and again, I'm sure it's Resident Evil inspirations on its sleeve, because Resident Evil had those giant bosses. Like I was thinking like Nemesis in 3 when he becomes like that giant like corpse of flesh towards the end of the game, or
same
like,
with William.
Yeah, so again, like this game just takes all the inspirations, and it doesn't hide the fact that it's inspired and influenced by these, but it also makes it its own distinct personality, which I think is why it's so effective. And again, like it like the confined areas in here, like I actually don't, I always love like space games that do this, where all the corridors feel like they're corridors, and like you always feel like you're in danger in some way.
Oh, one of the corridors in the original, it has this giant hole in it, and you're like, that doesn't look good.
Yeah.
And as you're walking to it, this giant tentacle comes whipping out. It's one of the jump scares in the game, one of the few ones. And then it grabs you, and you have to, as it's dragging you, you have to hit its weak point. Where that part is in the remake, and you're like, okay, I know what's coming because I played the original, and then it doesn't, and you're like, oh, okay, so they just wanted to trick you. So you go around a couple corners, and you're about to go in this door, and then it grabs you and starts pulling you, and you're like, oh, I still got.
So I remember catching that, but I didn't connect that it was the reverse in the original game.
Yeah.
But it got me the same way you did when I played through the game. It was like, oh, like, they totally played me. Like something had to have come out of there, right? No. It's the next one. So I guess that's one sort of a fun way it subverts your expectations and keeping like, well, you know the jump scare's here, but it's not actually here.
One thing I noticed with this, and I'm glad they didn't change it up too much, is that with this remake coming out in 2023, the big thing for a lot of games these days are the yellow paint. Mm-hmm. I'm even noticing it in Resident Evil 8 now that I'm playing it. Whereas in this one, they didn't add any of that. And I did end up getting lost a couple times, especially in 0G, because you get totally turned around.
Yeah, it's really easy to get disoriented.
But what they did do that I liked, and it feels very like in universe, is that if there's an item, it still has a little glowy color, like a green for an ammo or a white for an item, or I think there's some blue for like
they're
health.
color coded.
Yeah. And you're like, just out of the corner of your eye, you can see this little glowing dot, and you can even pull it with your stasis if you're too far away from it.
Yeah, which is really cool.
But I'm just glad that they didn't add giant flashing neon signs saying like, look at the stuff you can pick up.
And also the way Meg gets that too is like if you hit R3, you have like again like in universe, like Isaac puts his hand out and like you see this sort of waypoint marker show up on the ground. It's like a holographic little line. So if you do get sort of disoriented on where you are, you can hit that and it'll direct you on where to go. Which again, like, it's there if you want to use it. Like I know I used that when I was playing the remake. Yeah, there's times it's like you're going back and forth. You might be backtracking. And like, you know, there's plenty of times where you know where you're supposed to go, and you take a right instead of a left, and you're like, wait, this doesn't look familiar.
You come into a room with 4 other doors, and you're like, oh crap.
Yeah. But also, what I would use that for is like, so I know where I'm supposed to go, but that means I can go explore the opposite way, right? Yep. So it's like I know that if I go through there, I may not be able to come back. So I'm just going to explore this room that's empty because that's technically not where I'm supposed to go to. So that's how I always use those. It's like it shows me where I'm supposed to go, which means I can go explore where I'm not supposed to go. I guess we'll get into some review. Well, I would say reviews because I didn't really get like a Nintendo Power or GamePro like we usually do because both were.
2008 was even pretty late for the review.
I was going to say, like, I think Nintendo Power was still around and this wasn't even on Nintendo. GamePro was probably dead, EGM. So I just got a couple Metacritic scores. So the original game got an 88 out of 100 on PS3, 89 out of 100 on 360, 86 out of 100 on PC.
It's funny that it got one more point for Xbox.
Well, it's probably like, you know, it's different reviewers. There might be more reviews on there. Like, you know, might have like 120 versus 105 or something like that. Because there's always like those weird one or a couple point disparities. Overall, it's got like a ton of critical acclaim for its innovative third-person gameplay and incredible enemy designs, audio-visual designs. The story and disturbing atmosphere were also praised for reinforcing the sci-fi horror elements. And also the remake got even better scores. It got a 90 out of 100 on Xbox, 89 out of 100 on PS5, and 87 out of 100 on PC. So no matter how you slice the original or the remake, really stellar game. Like I know, you know, I feel like that 8.7 to 9 range usually pretty hard for most games to break. Like I feel like a lot of games probably fall in like the 80 to 85 range, right? Like it's not so often you get games that are like 90 and above. That's like, you know, Zelda, Mario. That's like, you know, Hades 2 got like a 94 recently.
Didn't Donkey Kong Bonanza get like hundreds
it's 90 something. I think it's like 90s. Yeah, it's high 90s. I want to say like if it's not, you know, 94 is probably like 90, 91 or something like that. So I think this is like in that similar company, frankly. Like one of the things that sucks about this game, it's not even like the game itself, is the fact that this game sold, it underperformed as far as sales. I don't know the exact sale count for the remake. I know it sold millions, and it's a weird in a world where millions of sales don't account for success. Like it's fun when we retroactively look at some of the games you and I talk about, like from the old days, where it's like they were happy to sell 500,000 in 6 months.
They had like Nintendo 64 had those gold labels because they sold 1 million.
Yeah, right. 1 million,
just
8
one.
million. Yeah, and I know and it's a little reductive because like the gaming industry was a lot smaller back then compared to now. But it's just to me, it's like the more I see this happen, it's just the more it just frustrates me. Where it's like this was a million seller, but unfortunately EA didn't think it was good enough to potentially make a remake for 2. So I don't think that's going to happen. I hope it does. I don't think it will. But this game also had the unfortunate timing window where Callisto Protocol was, I would say, like moderately hyped before it came out. It wasn't like anyone was anticipating it too heavily. It was just like, oh, it could be a cool horror game. And then once it came out, it was like, well, the combat kind of sucks, which it does.
What's funny is I think when Callisto Protocol was announced, you didn't know about the Dead Space remake yet. And people were like, oh, well, if they're not going to...
Dead Space, but not Dead Space.
Yeah, if they're not going to do Dead Space, at least we're getting this game by the original director and whatnot. And then shortly after that, they announced the Dead Space remake. And so people were like, oh, well, we might as well just wait for that. But then shortly after that, they were like, how about a Resident Evil 4 remake? And everybody was like, well, crap.
Yeah, exactly. So I think... I don't have any proof of it necessarily that it might have affected sales. Like, there's probably marketing aspects to it. There's a lot of reasons why this didn't sell as well as it could have. Like maybe EA just didn't, they market the wrong way. There's a billion reasons that could factor into it. But I feel like one big thing is that this came out January 2023. Callisto Protocol was December 2022. And that, I don't say it flopped, but it definitely was disappointing for most people. Like Ivan was disappointed with it because the combat was not fun. I read they fixed it, patched it later. I have no idea if they did or not.
Were they trying the limb thing on that one too?
No. Unfortunately, it was more like it was melee heavy.
Shooter.
Not even that. Like I got through like the first couple hours and it was like a melee brawler thing, which falls apart when there's 2 enemies on you.
Yeah,
because it's like 1-on-1 almost, and you can't. It's a mess.
We don't want that much of a classic.
Exactly. Yeah, it just didn't work, and I know they might have patched it and whatnot. I would like to try it again, but when I played it when it came out, I was like, all right, well, this is not what I was hoping for, unfortunately. But Dead Space Remake was everything I hoped for, and then like you said, Deucy, 2 months later in March, I think most people had to have been waiting for the Resident Evil 4 remake because. When you have a remake of one of the most influential games ever made in Resident Evil 4, you're going to have a lot of eyes just on the idea of it. They don't really need to market it much because people see it's Resident Evil 4 and they've been waiting for it. And, times are tough. Like, not everyone's going to pay $60 right out the gate for every game they get.
Especially just after the holiday
season. And now it's like, well, we're just going to get Resident Evil 4, which ends up selling, I'm sure, millions because, Resident Evil and Capcom, frankly, is on fire and has been on fire. So Dead Space got the short end of the stick, unfortunately. I think that, if you haven't played it, you should definitely play this game. I don't know what else we could add on to this, Deuce, but I feel like this is, to me, it's one of the upper echelon sort of horror games. It's honestly one of my favorites on the PS5.
I mean... And I will say this about the original too, where like I'm not a horror guy, but I am a big sci-fi horror. I enjoy the Alien movies and Sunshine, like you mentioned, and things like that. And so this, I sort of forgot how much I liked this game and this story because even though I didn't remember specifics about the original from 2008, because I played it back then when it first came out, it's something still stuck with me. Big set pieces still stuck with me. The character in general and what he was about and what the ship was doing and that sort of thing stayed with me. And then when I played the remake, I was just like, finally, this is what I remember it as. This fits my memory of the whole story, start to finish. And I don't even actually mind that there might not be a remake of 2 because I do remember not liking 2 as much. Especially when I got stuck in that gauntlet right at the end of the game. And then I heard 3 was just more action than horror.
Yeah.
I'm happy with this just being a standalone. It was a great time. If they do want to turn it into a series or a movie, I'll be there for that too.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Whereas like this is self-contained enough where I'm more frustrated because it's like I would love a remake of 2 because I know a lot of people consider 2 sort of the peak, which makes sense. It's always the case. Like Resident Evil 1 through 3, I feel like 2 was the peak, right? So it's like it makes sense that the sequel was doing what the first game did and even better. So it's like I'm bitter about that because just EA just probably isn't going to make it happen. But as a standalone game, Dead Space stands on its own, and it's like it's one of the best survival horror games I think you could ever play, frankly. And the remake, we have a lot of interpretations of the remake because some games keep a lot the same, some are a little bit loose in sort of keeping games 1-to-1. This is about as faithful as you could get without it being like a direct copy of the original game. They added just enough to where it modernized it, but also didn't change a whole lot to the whole game. Frankly, it's just, you know, some of those side quests were additions, but they seamlessly transitioned into it. The whole security clearance system, where it's like you can access areas that were previously inaccessible in the original game, you can go to now if you want to backtrack a little bit. So everything that they did here was really just thoughtful, and I thought that they solved that their objective was to make a remake of Dead Space, and they nailed it to complete T. Like, this is, to me, it's a 9 out of 10 game easily.
I wonder if some of those things, like the clearance, the security clearance thing, I wonder if that's what they wanted to do in the original and they couldn't because of the limitations, and then they were like, well, now we can put some of these extra things in there.
I'd say it's totally possible because, you know, the original game does have that system where it's like you complete chapter and it's almost like going to a new level, right? Like that tram takes you.
Yeah.
And there's probably instances in the game where you kind of have to go back and forth, but it's not like you have the agency or freedom to do so, where that new security clearance system with the doors and the levels you have, you can go back and forth if you need to get certain things. So it's just a truly stellar game, truly stellar remake. You know, I don't know where Dead Space is going to go after this, but if this is the only thing we'll have for, you know, a decade or two, that's fine. Like, I feel like I could replay this game a few times over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'm actually interested in playing the New Game Plus because of that extra stuff.
Yeah. All right, Deucy. Well, I think that that might put us at the end here. So I guess we'll get our shouts for socials first. If you want to reach out to us to talk Dead Space or anything else, you can reach out to us by email, legiongamingpod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram, where we're more prevalent, at Legion Gaming Podcast, and a little bit on Blue Sky at legiongamingpod.bsky.social. Although it seems like there's not a whole lot of people there. I'm just shouting into the abyss, but you know, it's not unusual for me to do that to begin with. Do you see anything else you want to add to this game before we sort of adjourn for the day?
Just press start to continue.